Hey guys, Keith Shillan. I just wanted to jump in here before the episode started. I want to warn the listeners, there's some technical issues in this one. Very in the beginning, there's some scratching moments, a little bit in the Erin Blanchfield episode. It's something we're not used to, and I apologize for that. Something that we take a lot of pride at the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network is trying to be professionals, trying to have the best audio quality. Unfortunately, sometimes that is not always the case. It's not what we want for the listeners. But I ask that you bear with me, try to get through the episode. Like I said, it's not too bad, but it's definitely not up to our standard. I apologize once again, and thanks for listening. Here's the rest of the episode. We are back, the MMA Takeover. I am the host, Keith Shillan. I thank you for listening. We have a lot to get to in this episode. So many things, so many thoughts after UFC 247 went down this past week. Let me tell you what's going to go on this episode. We're adding an additional segment, so actually be 4 segments. Like always, in the last segment, I'll be giving all my predictions as we look ahead to UFC Rio Rancho, which is going down this weekend. Main event, Corey Anderson versus Jan Blachowicz. I'll be giving all my picks from the bottom to the top. It is not an in-depth breakdown like we have a breakdown show or like I do on All Angles with John Franklin. It'll just be kind of quicker. We have a fighter coming on in the third segment, a new segment we're doing. But we have the great Erin Blanchfield, who came off a knockout win over Victoria Leonardo at this past weekend's Invicta, which happened on Friday night in a spectacular knockout. And in the second segment, we have one of the best MMA journalists in the game. We have Pettry from Sherdog. He was there in Houston at the Toyota Center. He's going to give us all his thoughts. But before we get to them, let me give you some of my thoughts. Obviously, I've already spoke about this on the recap show. I spoke about UFC 247 on Between the Links. Man, what an evening. What a great night of fights. Fantastic main event, whether you scored it for Jon Jones or Dominic Reyes. You can't be disappointed on the action. It was a great fight. So before the fight, I end up taking Jon Jones to win. But when they announced the fight, I had this feeling that Dominic Reyes was going to win. Then when I looked at tape study, I started really feeling like Dominic Reyes was going to win. But I cowered out. I found ways that Jon could win, and I ended up taking Jon Jones. I guess technically my pick was correct, though I do not agree that Jon Jones should have won. In my scorecard, I scored it 48-47 for Dominic Reyes. I believe we should have a new light heavyweight champion of the world. That said, I want to address something right off the top. This fight was not a robbery. Just because you score a fight for somebody and they lose does not make it a robbery. This fight, over 5 rounds, this fight had 2 decisive rounds, in my opinion. The first round and the 5th round. The first round, I thought it was pretty clear Dominic Reyes won. He landed the best punches. He hurt Jon. I shouldn't say hurt, but he landed significant strikes. In the 5th round, Jon had his best round. He was the one pressing the action. I think he got a takedown, though nothing really happened with a takedown, but he landed the better shots. Had Dominic Reyes fighting off his back foot the whole time. But in between, sandwiched in between the 1st and the 5th round is where this fight was decided. So in essence, the way I look at it, it was pretty much a 3-round fight between rounds 2, 3, and 4. Whoever won 2 out of the 3 rounds wins. I gave the first 2 rounds to Dominic Reyes. I gave the 4th round to Jon Jones. That says, I think all the rounds were close in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. I believe that you could have scored it any way you want, which, believe it or not, makes that Joe Solis 49-46 scorecard for Jon Jones not seem that what's the word I'm looking for? Egregious, as people have said. Not that bad. if you gave rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5 for Jon, and I think 2, 3, and 4 were closer toss-ups, then you can understand why Jon Jones would win. That said, I get to Dominic Reyes, and this is the first time I've ever scored a fight against Jon Jones. The Thiago Santos fight, I scored a 49-46 for Jones. I believe I scored the first Alexander Gustafsson fight, and I did score for Jones. I can't remember if I went 48-47 for Jones or if I went 49-46 for Jones. I know I definitely gave it to Jon Jones. I believe that Jon Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. That said, I do not believe he's the greatest fighter in the world, pound for pound today. Heading into UFC 247, we do rankings at Sherdog. If you're not familiar, I should have said this on top. I'm a writer for Sherdog, Cape Press, and obviously I'm the executive producer here at Nothing Made Podcast Network. When we have our weekly rankings, we also have our pound for pound rankings, and I've been arguing that Khabib Nurmagomedov should be ahead of Jon Jones. Now they take the overall consensus of the group, the majority of the group, the majority still had Jon Jones ahead of him. After this week, Khabib has leapfrogged. But I went further. I argued that Henry Cejudo should also be ahead of Jon Jones. That wins, knockout win over Marlon Moraes, a knockout win over TJ Dillashaw, the split, I believe it was a split decision win over Demetrius Johnson. Those three, in the last three appearances, were more impressive than Jon Jones' appearances against Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, and Dominic. That's why I have Henry Cejudo ahead of him. But the biggest thing to me, that didn't happen, it hasn't changed yet, but I see a decline in Jon Jones. He's about to turn 33 years old. He doesn't throw combinations. He really throws one strike at a time. He does a very good job at varying his strikes, whether it be jab, he switches stances so he can go left-handed, right-handed, throw the power strike, the jab, kicks, the oblique kicks, the spinning shots. Obviously, his range is still effective. He does really good in the clip, but he doesn't throw a combination. I think he's losing speed. And something that I said on all angles ahead of time is his entry shots are becoming an issue. It's almost non-existent now. Even his takedowns, he got one takedown against Anthony Smith. It wasn't entry. It was like he got in close, slowly dropped down his legs. He got Alexander Gustafsson down a couple times. It was from catching kicks. It wasn't your double leg takedown, your Josh Koscheck hitting the takedown, driving all the way across the cage, your Khabib, your Gregor Gillespie's, these guys who have these lightning fast entries. That's not there for Jon Jones. And that's a huge part of his game. But the scariest part was when he got Dominic Reyes down, he wasn't able to hold him down. Whatever you believe, if you're in the camp like me that believe that Jon Jones' entries, his shots have declined and they're not anywhere near elite anymore, he still had this ability that when he got you down, he's going to punish you. That round is over. That fight might be over. He still has one of the very best top teams in history. I wonder if it's still there. Now, this could be me not giving enough Dominic Reyes credit, and I should. Dominic Reyes was spectacular on Saturday night. So if Jon Jones' top game is not there, this is a man in trouble. And if I'm in Jon Jones' camp, and I said this on Between Links, I would be running from Dominic Reyes. I believe that Jon Jones is on his way down a mountain and Dominic Reyes on his rise. I think Dominic Reyes has a lot of statistical issues that Jon struggled with. Now, I believe Jon Jones is a terrible stylistic matchup for Corey Anderson and Jan Blachowicz. Now, if he gets that fight, he takes on the winner of that fight, I have to look back into it. I'll do my film study for all angles, and maybe my opinion will change. Maybe I'll think that Corey Anderson has the right recipe to beat Jon Jones, or maybe Jan Blachowicz. I doubt that I'm going to come up with that, but maybe that will be what I believe 4 months now, 6 months now, whenever they face, if they face. So if I'm Jon Jones management, if I'm his team, I'm pushing him to fight the winner of Corey Anderson and Jan Blachowicz and then move up to heavyweight. Now, a lot of people believe that Jon Jones' performance on Saturday makes it seem like he's not ready for heavyweight. I'm saying the opposite. What is the difference between heavyweight and light heavyweight? It's really just power. When it comes to, obviously, the lighter weight, speed is going to be there. You face a guy like Dominic Reyes, he's just as long as keeping it. I should have said that. He's probably longer than him. Probably tall. I'm not sure. I should have looked this up. I'm not going to pull it up right now. But you get the point. The length, the size, like Jon's not going to be undersized going heavyweight. Jon has never been known for his power, so he won't be the power hitter, even though he's never been heavyweight. But will he struggle with a Stipe Miocic or maybe even Gallo? I don't know. The thing that still stands out to me about Jon Jones is his chin, is how great his chin has been. And he walks through punches. I mean, he did it Saturday night. That's why he won, is that he, even though he got hurt, he kept pressing the action, walking through the punches of Dominic Reyes. What he struggled with Dominic Reyes was the speed and athleticism of Dominic Reyes. He won't get that hit heavyweight. Stipe Miocic is not as quick as Dominic Reyes. Francis Ngannou isn't. Derek Lewis isn't. Daniel Cormier isn't. Who else is talking about? Curtis Blades isn't. No, these guys are. A guy like Curtis Blades is huge for the weight class. I mean, he's a big man. Derek Lewis is huge. Francis Ngannou hits harder than anybody in history. But the speed, Jon Jones will have a speed advantage. He'll have an athleticism advantage. And Saturday night, I believe that was the first time that Jon Jones did not have an athleticism advantage. And I think that's a problem. But the other thing we got to remember, Jon Jones is 33. Oh, he's about to be 33 years old. He's not old. But this guy was winning the championship when he was, 24, 23, 24, whatever it was. He's been on the top of that mountain for a long time. But the thing that really concerns me is, I don't know if he's had the wars. I think, obviously the first Gustafsson probably took a little bit out of him. The Thiago Santos fight, this fight, they're taking a little bit out of him. But the thing I'm really concerned is, what has Jon Jones done to his body outside of the octagon? When we know he's admitted he's done cocaine. He goes out partying. He's talking about getting blacked out and drunk before fights. Doing that to your body will force you to pay dividends later on. Doing that at 24, 25, 26, 27, 30 years old, is that taking the toll on Jon Jones' bodies now? Is that why I believe he's slowing down? Why I believe his wrestling's gone? I shouldn't say his wrestling's gone. I mean, I'm talking about his entries. He's still obviously a high-level wrestler. But I'm saying, that's not a big, strong part of his game right now. Why has guys, and I shouldn't compare sports, but why has guys like Tom Brady been able to play at the highest level into his 40s? Why was he able to play at 40 years old and be an MVP of the league? At 42, he wins the Super Bowl. At 41, I think he went to the Super Bowl at 41, won it at 42. 40, he went to the Super Bowl, won the league MVP. 41, he won the Super Bowl. 42 was this past season, didn't do that well. But why has Tom Brady been able to keep up such a high level? Now, of course, the demands on a quarterback is not the same as a fighter. So before, I understand that. But also, why has Tom Brady been able to play at the highest level into his 40s and other quarterbacks haven't? It's because of, listen to the work ethic of this guy. They say first in the gym, last one out, big film guy, the biggest film guy maybe in history. But the thing that always stands out, you always hear, is his teammates. And we talk about his diet. This guy doesn't eat sugary cereals. He doesn't eat red meat, he has this crazy strict diet where he's eating tofu burgers and he's eating salads every day and, protein shakes and vegetable and fruit shakes and stuff. That's what Tom Brady is doing. Jon Jones didn't do that stuff. Jon Jones was snorting coke. Jon Jones was at the clubs. And I'm not trying to take away Jon Jones' fighter. I already said I believe he's the greatest fighter of all time. I think of every man who's ever stepped in the octagon, every man who's stepped in, not just in the UFC, outside of the UFC, in any mixed martial arts fight, I believe Jon Jones is the greatest of them all. However, I believe some of the stuff he's done, he might be, what they say is like, you got to pay the devil. Like there's, you make a deal with the devil, he's going to come around and collect. Maybe it's time for the devils come around and collect. Now, am I saying that he's done, that he's washed up? No, do not read into that. I just said he's the third best pound-for-pound fighter in the world behind, I believe, right now, Khabib Nurmagomedov and Henry Cejudo. So please don't think of that too much. But I think we might be coming to an end of an era for Jon Jones where will he have more title defenses? I think so. Could he win the UFC heavyweight championship? I probably would take him over Stipe Miocic right now, even though I didn't think he had a good showing on Saturday night. So I'm not, bashing and saying he's done. But that era of dominance, what's the word I'm looking for? The immortality, the indestructible man. There's a lot of chinks in his armor now. So that's my thoughts. I tried taking a different angle than I did on the other shows. But we're going to take a quick short break. We'll be right back with Jay Pettry, Sherdog.com. He was on scene in Houston, and let's see what he thinks. All right, we are back. Thanks for sticking around. This is the MMA Takeover show on the Loudmouth Network. I am the host, Keith Shillan. Before we get to the guests, I just want to do some housekeeping thing. I don't do this enough, so I got to give props to the rest of the team on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. I want you to go, if you like the show, go check out all the shows. We have a fantastic team. I think we have the biggest team in MMA podcasting. You have myself, Kyle Steele, Fred Kirby, Davison Baker, Mike Heck, Craig Allen, Max Freeman, Marcel Dorff, Drake Riggs, and, of course, my buddy John Franklin. We have 9 different shows. We have the Not Safe for Work show, which is the rated R version. Do not listen to it around kids. We have the MMA Yesterday, which is a look back on history. Off the Cuff is a 4-man barbershop-type discussion. Between the Links is a 4-man debate. We kind of get a little mean with each other. We have the Breakdown show, Marcel Dorff and Max Freeman do, where they break down all the UFCs. Early Stoppage is a fast-paced opinion episode. All Angles is something we only do once a month. It is me and John Franklin. We break down the pay-per-view main events. I believe it is the most in-depth preview of a single fight. At least I claim it's the most in-depth, as we do almost 2 hours on a single fight. We did 2 hours this past week on Jon Jones and Dominic Reyes before the action went down. Of course, we do the recap shows for both UFC and Bellator. And, of course, the last one is this show, the MMA Takeover. You heard all my opinions on the last. Oh, before I say that, make sure you subscribe, do all that crap that Kyle will yell at me for not saying. But to the more important stuff, you heard all my opinions on UFC 247. I gave it on Between the Links. I gave it on the recap show. I just gave it in the last segment. But who cares about my opinion? Because I was sitting at home from a couch, and you get a different perspective if you're in the arena, like the judges are. They're in the arena. You get the sense of the crowd. If you're in the arena, you get a single view. It's completely different. So I want to go to a man who was in Houston this week. He covered all events. He was at Media Day. He was at the weigh-ins. He was obviously at the events talking to all the fighters. He was sitting there from Media Row. He is the associated editor of Sherdog.com. He is the great Jay Pettry. Jay, what's up, my man? How you doing?
Keith, how's it going, man? Glad to be here. Yeah, this weekend was a hell of a drug, let me tell you what. For the first big show to cover for Sherdog.com, holy smokes, 247 had a lot happen this week.
So, overall, I know you went down to Houston. You're from Pennsylvania, so that's a big. Yep. That alone is going to add some hours. And I've covered some shows. I covered shows for Sherdog. It's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work. And when you're done, you're pooped. So I understand you're probably a little tired, and you obviously have so many responsibilities, Sherdog. So I appreciate you taking the time and recapping a show that you're probably kind of sick of talking about. But before we get to it, I gave UFC 247 a B plus. I said, even with all the controversy, I thought there was some, fun knockouts. There was a lot of wars. I gave it a B plus. Yeah, give me a letter grade. If you're a teacher, how would you grade the overall card?
Well, to quote a buddy of mine, if you're going to look at a scoring criteria for that, for a card itself, you think of what you learned from it, what you took away from it. What did I get out of this card? I got a lot. I got a whole lot, regardless of the excitement level of the fights. You look at the several of the matchups, obviously the championship matchups and others along the way. I can give this a good solid B, just for the takeaway, how everything went.
Yeah, no, I felt the same way. Obviously, when you got a pay-per-view, you have to grade it on a curve. You got to be a little tougher on a pay-per-view. Was it worth the $65? But yeah, I was satisfied. I had a house full of people. Some people weren't satisfied with the decision, but the overall action, they were satisfied. So before we get into the fight, let's talk about the main event: Jon Jones versus Dominic Reyes. Before the fight happened, who did you predict to win, and why did you predict that guy to win?
Before this fight, normally I write prime picks betting odds pieces for the Sherdog site. I wasn't able to because of media coverage, because the way betting odds come out is certain prop bets only drop that Thursday before the event. You know how so-and-so wins by stoppage or by decision, all those different, the fancy lines that you want to look at, because Shevchenko is a massive favorite. You don't want to plunk down money on a minus 1,000 favorite. You want to look at some of the more interesting angles. Jones was similar. Jones was a huge favorite. I felt that Jones would be able to get out the win. I thought he'd win handily. I thought he'd employ his clinch work and grappling to kind of stifle Reyes and stop those big head kicks coming his way, because Reyes himself even kind of almost not gloated, but kind of lauded his ability to do some damage with his strikes. So I thought that Jones would crowd him. I thought he'd push the pace on him and take home a decision. My scorecard, or not my scorecard, my prediction was that Jones would get that done that way, which I think wasn't that out of line, if I remember correctly. I think Jones by decision was only plus 150, 200, around that range. It was a pretty decent thing. Yeah, I thought that he'd get there, and I thought that Reyes' durability would really hold on, so he wouldn't get finished. He might not get elbowed, but he could easily get handled like the way Anthony Smith did, and I was surprised.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unwrap there. First of all, so while you're kind of right, you're kind of wrong. Like, you're saying the reason why, not so much, which a lot of people were wrong about, but the fact that you called Jon Jones by a decision, if you made that bet in Vegas, you got paid. So that is reason why you should always go to Sherdog, the top MMA news site out there. Always check out Jay's piece. I was very proud of my work during the Contender Series. I thought I had a very high percentage of my picks. I picked a lot of upsets. But don't worry, Jay. I am not taking your job anytime soon. After everybody who reached out to me this week said, "What is your bet?" I said, "You want to make money?" I said, "Parlay the Fortis MMA fighters." Unfortunately, they did the reverse parlay, and all three of them, of course. Yeah. So I'm not going to be taking your job anytime soon. So let's get to the main event. Obviously, there's a lot of debate. To me, this is how I feel about the main event. First round, Reyes. Fifth round, Jones. The second, third, and fourth are all close rounds that I don't get angry if someone scored it either way. Now, I scored it 48-47, Dominic Reyes. I believe this should be a new champion. I gave him the first 3 rounds, gave Jon Jones the last 2 rounds. How did you score the fight?
Well, I am in the minority here because when I was scoring, I was cage side. And I saw that Reyes took the first 2 rounds. He definitely, what you said was a good point, that you could see the clear rounds, and then you could see the rounds where you went, ooh, there might be something there. So for the clear rounds, I had 1 for Reyes. I had 4 and 5 pretty handily inside in the favor of Jones, but I gave the 3rd round to Jones, which is the big one, the big difference maker. I thought that Reyes slowed just enough so Jones was able to kind of take the momentum. I think I was sitting next to a colleague from ESPN Houston, And I looked over and I said, something's changed here. I don't know if the momentum or Reyes is getting tired, because he put in some work, Reyes did, in the first 2 rounds. So yeah, I gave the first 2 to Reyes, and I gave the third, 4th, and 5th to Jones. But I did so on the reservation, saying I was running the social media for Sherdog at the time. When the scorecard was about to be read, I said, no matter what scorecard comes out, somebody will be incensed at the results. So I knew that 3rd round was going to be the one you go, some people have it otherwise. Also, one other interesting thing, we backstage, some MMA fighting colleagues had a live show going, and they went around asking every single media member about it. And there were only a small handful of us that at the time said Jones. I haven't rewatched the fight since then. I plan on doing so maybe tonight, but it's an interesting thing.
So the majority of people that I've heard that have gone with Jon Jones tend to be people who were in attendance. So I know, obviously, you're one of them. I know Jose Youngs from MMA Fighting is the guy who scored it for Jon Jones. I believe Gareth Davis, I'm not sure who he's with, the British guy, he scored it for Jon Jones. I know there's other ones I'm not thinking off the top of my head. So this is what I'd say, and I think you'd agree with this. Either way, there was no robbery. I don't think there was 6 close decisions, but I don't know if we've ever had 6 close decisions, 6 decisions that were debated between all the way from the first decision. Oh, not the first decision, the first controversial one, Andre Ewell and Jonathan Martinez, all the way to the main event. There were 6 of them. I'm going to say this: I don't think any of them were robberies. I don't think, like the scorecard that I've seen the most flack on is Lauren Murphy getting a 30-27 injury. Yes. This is how I feel about that fight. When I handed in my scorecard to MMA Decisions, after every single round, I scored it 30-27 for Andrea Lee, the opposite. And I still said, well, I'm giving that round to Andrea Lee, but it's really close. So if I say it's really close, I have no issue with it. Someone gave it to Lauren Murphy, which meaning if they give all 3 rounds to Lauren Murphy, it could be 30-27 in the way, and thus not a robbery. So I'm assuming you're with me that there was no robberies on this card.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. I think it was John Anik and Kenny Florian on their show this week said something along the lines of, rounds 2 and round 3 in the Jones Reyes fight were close rounds. So if you admit that they're both close rounds, theoretically, now work with me here. I'm not advocating for this, but
I know
theoretically,
where you're going with this. I know where you're going with this.
You could see that Joe Solis wasn't totally crazy. Now, granted, we all disagree, generally speaking, with Joe Solis' scorecards this fight, because he also scored a 30-27 in favor of Andre Ewell in the Jonathan Martinez fight, and we look at that and go, well, I personally didn't see Ewell winning 3 rounds in that fight, so that's another issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree also with you that the 30-27 in favor of Lauren Murphy in that fight is the most objectionable and is the most, I can't cry robbery, because you got to reserve that for some other ones, but it was a tough fight.
Yeah. The only scorecard that I have been going crazy about is when the same guy that you talk about, Mr. Solis, gave the first round of the Krause Trevin Giles fight to Trevin Giles. I don't understand that. I try to be a guy that looks on the outside, try to stand up for the guy who was getting bullied. I mean, I'm the only person I know that was really standing up for Stephen A. Smith in the Donald Cerrone fiasco, which I'm sure I got some people hating me for that. But I can't defend the Trevin Giles one. I don't get that. So let's talk about. Let's put a little pin on the judging, because we got to go back to that. But I want to talk about Jon Jones. I think Jon Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. Based on his resume. Now, of course, I think obviously the PEDs. There's a lot of people when you get into the performance enhancing that will never give Jon Jones that title, no matter what he does. He could hold the title for another 10 years and not give it. That's fine. If you want to take that strong stance, that's fine. I'm not going to convince you in this hour show. That said, he did not look like the greatest fighter of all time on Saturday night. So let me ask you this question: do you believe that Jon Jones' performance was more based on Jon declining, or is Dominic Reyes on that level? Is he that good?
Well, on my weekly show Unleashed, I'm not going to plug it any more than that.
You can play it. Go ahead.
At the end of the broadcast, we will.
Okay, all right.
Jones, it was yes for me. It was just a flat yes to the question of if Jon Jones is declining, if the field is improving. It's yes. Now, there were some things that Jon Jones did less well than he usually does. He struggled with the takedown very, very much. I don't think he landed the takedown until the fourth round. So his own argument of the takedowns run the fight, that doesn't hold any water for me. But he was only able to ground Reyes at most for seconds. But what really stuck out was Jones' inability to really control him and do some damage against the fence, which is where I thought he would have the biggest advantage, close the distance on a heavy kicker and work him and do those elbows he loves so much. Well, he didn't. And that was very surprising. Is that, to me, that kind of looked like either not necessarily a decline in his skill set, but his desire to use other skills to try and win this fight. Because we know Jon Jones likes to try and beat a fighter at their own game, to say, I can beat you, like GSP. Many times George St. Pierre would try and beat a fider at their own game to strike with Carlos Condit.
He pulled guard against Quentin Jackson. Like, this guy would try everything.
Yeah, he's a computer and kind of figures things out as the fight goes along. But Dana White said this at the press conference is one of those you almost have forgot moments about Dominic Reyes is legit. And this performance, win or lose, and this was also something I said on the play-by-play, is Dominic Reyes deserves all the praise and accolades he gets from this performance. Because win or lose, that dude is a champion.
Yeah, I met Dominic Reyes' family outside. I was actually at his last fight against Chris Weidman. I was covering for Sherdog, and I met his family, and I talked to his mom and dad. Mom was on the Embedded show, very nice people, and they were as confident as anybody. They were telling me, and it wasn't like this is my son, I love him, he's gonna win.
Right.
Like, I'm sure if you ran into Caitlin Chikagian's dad, he would have been saying the same. No, they were saying like they had a secret, like they knew, like this is a done deal, like we're gonna be celebrating. So I'll always remember that. So if Dominic Reyes' parents do hear this, I remember that moment, and I hope to run into them one time again. So back to Jon Jones declining or Reyes, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of both, where John's starting to make his way down the mountain and Reyes making his way up. And this is the point on Saturday where they crossed. And a year from now, if Jon doesn't make some changes, they might be at different path, and Jon can be much lower than Dominic. And the other thing, you made a great point about Jon's wrestling. I'm not surprised by the decline in Jon's wrestling shots. It's something I believe it's been a decline for a while. But what I was very surprised is inability to keep him down, because even though he has struggled to get guys down, when Jon Jones gets you down, the round's over. Forget it.
Yes.
The round's over, and many times the fight is over. So for Reyes to be able to get up, I don't know if he has found a secret how to scramble, or if Jon's declining. But the most impressed I was is when Jon was getting the takedowns, it's the fourth and fifth round where Dominic Reyes is supposed to be tired. For him to get up, that's what really stood out to me. So let me ask you a two-part question. Jon Jones, before the fight, there was a lot of questions about him going heavyweight. I think it was the first time when he really acknowledged that he's ready to go up to heavyweight. He talked about the heavyweight champion, Stipe Miocic. He talked about several times about he said something. I think he said something like, "I need to get that fight now." How did you feel about Jon Jones moving up to heavyweight before the fight? And did the fight change your opinion about Jon Jones, whether he should go to heavyweight and how he would do at heavyweight?
Well, to kind of circle around to that question, I think Jones finally admitting he needs to go to heavyweight and take on Stipe, take on whoever the heavyweight champion is. I think that was that rare moment where fighters do actually look past their opponent. And I think that was a big mistake. I think that was especially against a guy like Reyes, as he proved himself that way. Sure, the idea of Jon Jones moving up to heavyweight is interesting to me, on the condition that he moves up to heavyweight. That sounds like a silly thing to say, but I don't want to have the back and forth. We don't need the two division champion, even with divisions that are pretty slim. Even with divisions that are kind of questioning with challengers, maybe they can put one together every 6 months or so. These divisions seem to be able to crop up a new challenger at any time. We've had these guys burst out of practically nowhere to challenge for the title at light heavyweight the past few years. Volkan Ozdemir, Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, Dominic Reyes. These guys are charging up the rankings, and every single one is a worthy contender. And they're new. They're fresh faces. They're guys that most of the guys in the division haven't faced before. They're the ones that get dispatched along the way. So there's fresh matchups. After this performance, I want to see Jones stay at light heavyweight. I do want to see that kind of legacy. I'm not of the camp that believes a fighter needs to change weight classes to have a greater legacy than somebody else. I don't think that's important. Personally, you said that Jones is your top fighter of all time. George St. Pierre would probably be mine in an asterisk society,
Sure.
in a getting rid of all the things like that. But in a Barry Bonds gets in the Hall of Fame type of way, of course Jones is like 1A, 1B.
Yeah,
It
sure.
has to be. But GSP cemented his legacy, but I don't think improved it drastically by
I
moving
agree.
up a division to beat Michael Bisping.
Yeah,
It was
I totally
just
agree.
it was that weird cherry. It was the maraschino cherry on top that you don't really want to eat. You just kind of look at it.
Yeah.
It didn't matter as much. I don't think Jones needs to move up to heavyweight to cement his legacy. And that said, he'll probably be fighting Derek Lewis or Francis Ngannou in a year from now, because that's this weird sport we have.
Yeah, to build off what you were saying about George St. Pierre getting the title, it felt like that agent veteran who jumped on that really good team to get a title at the end of his career. I think like Mitch
Yeah,
Richmond did that, or
yeah.
like it's like, yeah, you got a title, but
Hmm.
come on. It
Good
was
for you, buddy.
Michael Bisping, who I think retired like 3 months later. So I'm going to disagree with you. If I'm Jon Jones, his team, I'm his management, I'm Greg Jackson, Mike Winklejohn. I am suggesting he goes up to heavyweight, and I'll tell you why. Everybody's looking at that matchup against Dominic Reyes. I'm hearing a lot of people saying like this shows that Jon Jones is not ready. I'm saying the opposite because to me, Jon Jones did not struggle with the power of Dominic Reyes, which you expect to happen when you get up higher against
Yeah.
a Stipe Miocic. Jon Jones has a granite chin. The thing
Oh
that really
yeah. Oh
still
my
impresses
gosh.
you is the fact that Dominic Reyes hit him with everything. This is Dominic Reyes that, uppercutted Osan Pereira into
Hmm.
oblivion. He did that step back cross left hand that just absolutely
Yep.
crushed Chris Weidman. I mean, this guy. Remember the high kick that got him in the UFC and
Jordan
LFA.
Powell. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, this guy has serious power, but it wasn't the power that
Nope.
struggled, which I think is the advantage going up to heavyweight. The power will be there, but the thing that, in my opinion, that Jon Jones struggled with is speed of Dominic Reyes, and dare I actually say this, the athleticism of Dominic Reyes. Like Dominic said, I'm the best athlete. I think he backed it up. But I don't think you get that speed and athleticism at heavyweight. I mean, you have
No way.
obviously the raw power. Miocic, Francis Ngannou. I mean, Josino Rosenstruck. Obviously, these guys hit like trains. But the speed and athleticism, I actually think if I'm Jon Jones, is like I'm saying winner of this weekend's fight between Corey Anderson and Jan Blachowicz, and then Stipe and forfeit that belt, give it to Reyes, stay away from that. If I'm the corner, we're running away from Reyes. So let me ask that question. So you're the matchmaker. Who do you think Jon Jones should face next?
Uh, you know, Corey Anderson deserved a title shot a long time ago, and
Okay.
he's got to get by Jan Blachowicz, and good luck. I mean, he handled him last time. From everything I remember, there was a 10-8 round sprinkled in there, so it was a fairly one-sided performance by all regards, and I have to think it's going to play out the same way. Now, would Corey Anderson be a greater threat against Jon Jones? Would he be able to sell? I don't see any of those things. So
I
maybe as the
agree.
UFC matchmaker, maybe, just thinking UFC matchmaker has business interests in mind, you wouldn't put in Corey Anderson other than to improve Jon Jones' legacy by saying he's destroying all the contenders. But to sell fights, there aren't many fights at light heavyweight that can really move the proverbial
Sure.
needle. A rematch, I, yeah, a rematch between Dominic Reyes, I suppose, but the bigger in terms of money fights using air quotes, every one of them is at heavyweight. I
Okay.
mean, come on, think of the names. I mean, we mentioned a couple of them. Just that would be
Miocic,
crazy to see him fight
Ngannou,
again.
third fight against
Anybody. I
Cormier.
mean, yeah, throw him against Lewis if you want to give him a top 5 test that he
Sure.
can work through. There's a ton of names. They are all fresh matchups, with the exception of Daniel Cormier, who we're still not sure what his plan is. And I mean, if you want the moneyest of money fights, the UFC praised that Cormier fights Miocic and wins the belt and the rubber match. So Jones versus Cormier for all the marbles of the heavyweight title is the moneyest fight they could probably do.
So, just for the record, you're not one of these guys thinking immediate rematch.
If I'm the UFC matchmaker, I'd say go to heavyweight. But that's not that's pretending to be in Sean Shelby's shoes.
Yeah. So you're looking at the matchmaking. I was looking at it more as Jones' corner, and the reason why I said take the winner of Corey Anderson versus Jon Jones is a lot of things what you said. I think that stylistically, Jon Jones is a terrible matchup for those two guys. I think Jon Jones would look really good. So kind of get that win. So it doesn't look like you're running away from it kind of doesn't look like you're running away from the division. And then you'd say, yeah, I'm very interested in Dominic Reyes. You mentioned his name, but then you just say, when you get the opportunity to go up and weigh, you take it. So I'm gonna get you out of here. You've already spend more time. I just want to get a couple more questions from you.
Sure.
Obviously, we got to talk about judging. It was a big issue. I said I don't think it was as bad as people make it sound like, but there was issues like we talked about the Trevin Giles. So, what can be done to fix judging? What is the master plan?
I'm genuinely curious about how Kansas implements open scoring at the next upcoming Invicta card. Now, granted, the Invicta card is the Phoenix Rising #3.
It's the worst event to start it with.
Where most of the fights are one-round fights. Yeah. There's a couple, but at the same time, it's kind of brilliant because there still are a couple relevant fights on there. There's a title fight. There's a couple other matchups on the card. So maybe, I think 3, maybe 4 fights are actually open score. So that's kind of the best of both worlds. They can have it. They can point to this and say, look, this was a disaster. This wasn't a disaster. Because there are obviously, we can think of the implications. We can think of the ramifications of a fighter who looks at the scorecards and sees it's 2018 going to the third round. Yeah. So I would like to see how that plays out because I think that could help. It wouldn't help in terms of accountability purposes, but it would help in terms of knowing and that not being surprised anymore. Sure. Because that kind of is a problem when a corner will say, oh yeah, you're up 2 rounds, champ, and they actually are down 2 rounds on some scorecards. So I think that could help coaching. Pass on 8.5 and 9.5 because if judges are having a hard time with 10 and 9, cutting it down isn't going to help anymore. Other than that, I mean, it might sound so stupid to say, but these judges need to be held accountable, and maybe there's more training that needs to be done. It doesn't make sense how one judge, a local judge or not, can report multiple strange, questionable scores and scorecards multiple times throughout the night. Like, you can look at every one of Joe Solis' scorecards and go, wait, hold on. Every single one, that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't. It's one thing to have a bad night, one thing to have a bad fight. But a consistent issue is something that maybe somebody needs to step in and have the Joe Rogan sit down talk with them.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I think I'm all for open score. I'm at least all for trying it. The one thing I've heard people say is, well, the opposite. If the guy's down 2 rounds, you're gonna press it. Well, if you're up 2 rounds, you're gonna coast. Well, the one thing I think one thing that I think has to go with the open scoring is that we need a true stalling rule like they have in high school wrestling, college wrestling. If those are unfamiliar how it works is there is a warning. It is not Herb Dean going, come on guys, keep moving. It is an actual. They'll scream out. In high school wrestling or college wrestling is usually red and the green, and guys represent each side. But whatever, you can do it different. And say it was Jon Jones was up. The referee would say warning, and he'd hold up. There'd be in wrestling, it's a fist, but there could be a whatever sign you want. Warning, Jones stalling, and that's the first warning. The second warning is a point. The third one is another point. A fourth one is 2 points, and then the 5th time the fight is over, you're disqualified. So if they want to go to and what happens is it actually makes them press the action. Instead of, they can't be backing up, they can't be running away because they're going to lose points. So it's actually a way where a fighter who's down by 2 points and he needs a stoppage could actually get a draw by pressing the action. They're going to win the round, and then maybe their opponent gives them a point by stalling. The other thing I really want, and I know this is kind of me being in a MMA utopia where I think everything's butterflies, and what I would really like to see is a true universal rules. And I think that's what judges. I believe the only way we can have true universal rules is we need the mega powers of MMA to come together. You need someone representing the UFC. You need someone representing Bellator, PFL, whichever ones you say, 5 or 6 top organizations. Get them together. Get them in a room. Get some fighters, some retired fighters, some current fighters. Get some coaches. Get some top referees, Herb Dean and Mark Goddard and these guys. Then get some media members. Reach out to Jay from Sherdog. Get someone from ESPN. Get someone from Body Lock. Get them from whatever. And get them all together. And then even get some of these commissioners, the ones that you respect the most, whoever it be. Get them all together and come up with these are the rules of MMA. No more boxing rules. No, these are the rules of MMA. And if you want and then the instead of the commissions adopting the rules, the organizations adopt the rules. And if you want the UFC to come to your state, you will adopt these rules. To me, the power's in the UFC's hand. Because, all right, you don't want to have the UFC, fine. We'll stay in Vegas. We'll do fine in Vegas, or we'll do fine. Or the other store, Boston takes it. Okay, well, guess what, New York? You're not getting the big mega fight. You're not getting Conor McGregor this week. We're going to go to your rival, Boston, and they're going to get it. I think to me, that's the way. Maybe I'm living in a pipe dream that we'd get UFC and Bellator guys together, but that's what I really hope happens. 2 last questions. Valentina Shevchenko was in the co-main event. It kind of got very absolute brilliant performance, destroyed Katlyn Chookagian, but kind of get overshadowed with the judging. And obviously she was going to be overshadowed no matter what with Jon Jones. The only way Katlyn Chookagian fight was going to get attention was if she lost. She obviously put on a performance. People are calling for Amanda Nunes, Shevchenko 3. Do you believe that's the right move, or are you like me and you're like, I've seen it twice already. I actually want to see dominance in the division. I just want to beat up girls in the division. Are you with me, or you with seems to be the masses that want to see the 2 top girls fight again?
No, I dig what you're putting down there. I do want, like I was saying about Jones not moving up to light heavyweight. It's a similar feeling for I want Valentina Shevchenko to continue her reign at flyweight. It is the weight class for her. Now, I know a lot of times in new divisions, champions face challengers that may on their face not be worthy. But by all regards, Chookagian was a worthy adversary. Her only 2 losses were to Liz Carmouche and Jessica Ai in the long span of time. And Carmouche and Ai. So women that Shevchenko had both defeated, but she had beaten basically everybody else in the division. JoJo Calderwood, Alexis Davis, Jennifer Maia. So she had done that. I would like to see her continue to fight contenders. Now, granted, the UFC ranking is top 10. There are very few fighters coming off of wins, let alone win streaks.
Sure.
But I think it's important to keep the division moving, especially if Shevchenko wants to fight every 3 months. It might sound a little tough to throw in some fighters that may not be worthy, but remember, Macy Barber was a win away from a title shot. I assume if she had gotten by Roxanne Modafferi, that'd be the one.
Sure.
So the next contender probably will be Lauren Murphy, the winner of Lauren Murphy versus Roxy Modafferi. And while, Valentina may be a favorite, you got to think that you look at Valentina and any potential opponents, she's going to be a massive favorite against everybody not named Amanda Nunes. So I'm down with her continuing her reign at flyweight. I think that let's build a dominant champion. Let's make a Mighty Mouse. I'm down.
Yeah, and I think about Ronda Rousey. No, Ronda Rousey didn't need the B-side. The narrative of Ronda Rousey was like, come see who knows what she's going to do. She's going to do something crazy, flying on bar to see if a girl can pass 1 minute. And she was putting up huge numbers of pay-per-view. Go over to boxing. Mike Tyson, the same narrative was on him. No one cared about the B-side. Exactly. It was, let's see Mike Tyson absolutely kill a dude. It's an accomplishment if the guy can make it to the 4th round. I think that's a good thing with Valentina Shevchenko. That's what I really hope that they do with her. The one thing that I think about flyweight, I don't want to go off on this because I can go off on a tangent. I've been a fan of MMA since UFC 6. I watched the debut of Tank Abbott. The first fight I ever saw was
that's exactly the first fight I ever remember seeing.
There you go. I saw it the day after UFC 6. My Uncle Joe He used to tape. He had one of those black boxes where you could tape the
Oh, yeah.
pay-per-views. He used to tape wrestling for me, and he saw this Ultimate Fighting thing. Funny, quick story. He taped it. If you remember, Tank Abbott made to the finals against Oleg Taktarov, and Ken Shamrock fought against Dan Severn in the super fight. Shamrock choked out Dan Severn. My uncle wasn't really paying attention, and he saw the ads that was the main event, and he stopped recording. I didn't even see the finals. I had to go to Blockbuster Video, start renting Blockbuster. Finally, and I started when I saw him, I went to number 1, and I started watching one. So when I went to number 6, I'm like, God, let me see how Tank Abbott won, because the internet was a thing that wasn't really that popular. There was probably about a 2-year stretch where I thought Tank freaking Abbott was the baddest dude on planet Earth for like 2 years or something stupid, maybe a year and a half. Yeah, so that's my first favorite fighter ever was Tank Abbott. Oh man, I'm ashamed. That was the 13-year-old, 14-year-old me. But why I said all that big story is back in the day, the Sherdog forums, the guy. I mean, you run the forums. This is the guy behind the forums. It was an absolute sin to mention adding weight classes. We wanted to be opposite from boxing. We didn't want weight classes every 5-10 pounds. We were like, it waters down division, and now it's a complete opposite. The view on that is like more weight classes, add 165. And I always say, and I'm in the very vast minority, you add 165, guess what? You just want the stack 155 and the stack 170 ain't that stacked anymore. And I think that's what you're seeing right now with women's flyweight. You have a division that's not that stacked. You got girls dropping from 135, which if you think 125 is bad, you got to look at 135. And then you got girls moving up from 125. The more you add weight class, I would go to my grade stance. The more you add weight classes, the weaker you're going to make the field. If you're okay with that, fine. But I will. The old school MMA guys, it's been around for a long time. That is a absolute sin to me. Last question to you before I get you out of here. Give me one fighter that really stood out to you, not in the main event and co-main event.
Ooh, I would say James Krause stood out to me the most, and that is despite a split decision loss. Now, this is James Krause, former lightweight, 2-time tough contestant, and current welterweight contender, still welterweight contender, who was riding a 6-fight win streak, and head coach of Glory MMA and Fitness, where he trains Megan Anderson and some other growing
Zach Cummings.
Yeah, some good names in the sport. He was cornering somebody this night. I mean, he was the corner of a fighter on this card, and then decided to take that. And it's interesting because I attended the weigh-ins. I ran a live weigh-in stream on Sherdog YouTube channel. And the very end of the card, or the very end of the weigh-ins, Antonio Arroyo, who is middleweight fighting Trevin Giles, was weighing in. And he hit the scales, and he made weight, and okay. And as he's walking away, I noticed that he's not doing so hot. And he's kind of wobbly and whatever. And trainers rush over to kind of help him walk away. And I remark on the broadcast, Antonio Arroyo doesn't look very good. I think that we're going to need to take a close eye on this and keep watch of what happens. Well, it turns out he was found face down somewhere on concrete or something depressing like that. And in steps one James Krause, who just happened to be in the building, able to make the middleweight limit, and former lightweight James Krause takes on former light heavyweight Trevin Giles, nearly gets the submission in the first round, wins it almost 10-8 the first round, and arguably won or took a draw. So that performance, just win or lose, James Krause, you to paraphrase a buddy of mine, he is a real G.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. So we do the show called Between the Links, and Mike Heck, he's the host of that, and he actually asked the same exact question, and guys gave, I don't know, people said Mario Batista this and that, and I said, yeah, Batista had a great show, Chaos Williams had a great shows, but we will have people do that every single week. We will not have people do what James Krause, but the thing that really stands out to me is James Krause used to be a lightweight. He just moved up to welterweight recently. And then on the flip side, Trevin Giles started his UFC career at light heavyweight. So we had, in essence, a guy lightweight with no training camp on one day. It's after the weigh-ins. He had to weigh in, 6 hours? He had to weigh in 6. So not only is he way smaller than Trevin Giles is already rehydrating himself while James Krause is cutting weight. And listen, Go over to Jorge Masvidal and take that belt from him, because the baddest MFer in the UFC's name is James Krause. And you know what James Krause did, in my opinion? You know when a guy misses weight and they're in Las Vegas and the guy in New York City tweets out, "I'll take that fight right now," and he really means like, one, you won't make weight, and two, you're half a country away.
Here. Yeah, yeah.
I think we're going to get a lot less of that, because what, to me, in my opinion, is that is just someone's like trying to like, oh, let me see how I'm going to get all these fans to see how tough and crazy I'd be.
Exactly.
To take. No. James Krause really did it. So, I'm glad that you said James Krause. I 100% agree with him. Listen, guys, I'm a huge fan of Jay. He's one of the top editors at Sherdog, one of the top writers. I think he's a man of prayer, and the reason why I say that is I don't think he edits any of my stuff. So he must be praying and stuff. So God has blessed him. And poor Brian Knapp, who I think edits about 95% of my stuff, that poor guy, and cleans me up. But listen, Jay's fantastic. He's one of the best guys in all of MMA. I'm a big fan of him. Jay, tell everybody where they can follow you, where they can find your work, whatever you want to do.
Man, well, I appreciate the really kind words. Man, that means a lot to me. You can find me on Twitter at @jpettry, just spell my name out, Jay. You can find me at Sherdog.com in the little features panel. You can drop down, and I'm right there, and I write all of the pieces of all the MMA, whether it's betting odds, whether it's play-by-play, whether it's post-fight analysis, previews, all of the above. I'm there. I'm a part of Sherdog Fight Finder as well. So basically everywhere in the fight game you need me to be, that's where I'll be.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Jay for taking the time. Stick around one more time. We're going to coming back with a female that absolutely put on a show this week and kind of got overshadowed based on UFC 247 being the next night. But the best knockout of the weekend happened in Invicta, which, believe it or not, was the first knockout, not TKO, the first knockout in Invicta since 2008. And it happened with a 20-year-old. We'll be right back from Invicta standout, Erin Blanchfield. Stick around. Welcome back to the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network, the MMA Takeover Show with Keith Shillan. I am, of course, the host, Keith Shillan. We talked about last week that I was going to be adding new segments, and one of the segments that I'm introducing this week, I'm going to be calling it the Prospect of the Week. I probably shouldn't say Prospect of the Week because I don't know if I'm going to do it every week, but at least when I find a prospect that's worth talking about. So I have a very special guest this week. This girl, amazingly, the thing that just jumps out to me, first of all, is she's only 20 years old, which is making me feel extremely young. As only 20 years old, she's already a champion of the Eddie Bravo Invitational. If you're not familiar with that, that is one of the highest level jiu-jitsu there is. She was the champion of that in the combat jiu-jitsu. She fights for Invicta. She sports a 5-1 record. We'll get to that loss later because I have some comments about that. She competed this past weekend where she defeated Victoria Leonardo via second round knockout. If you haven't seen it, it was a head kick. It was absolutely beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, Erin Cold-Blooded Blanchfield. Erin, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm excellent. So you won the fight, and in the post-fight interview, you talked about being sick. Are you feeling better now?
Yes, I'm definitely feeling better now. I think it was just something I ate after weigh-ins.
Right.
I ate like healthy. I went to Whole Foods and everything. But I think I must have some intolerance that I don't know about. And I got like super sick. I was throwing up from like 12 to like 3 o'clock, and the shuttle took us over at 4 o'clock to go to the venue. So I was freaking out a little bit. I didn't want to pull out of the fight at all because that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to fight. But thankfully around like 3:30, I felt so much better. I guess I got whatever was bothering me out of me. And I was able to perform. So
Dominance MMA manager Ali Abdelaziz, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He once went on a program and said he was poisoned Is there any chance we can just end the rumor right here? Did anybody from Victoria Leonardo's team try poisoning you? Is that true?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So all the people on the internet saying that she tried to poison you, that did not happen.
Yeah.
Maybe she should have, because it was not a very good night for her.
Yeah.
So first of all, congratulations on the victory. I mean, would you say this is the biggest victory of your career?
Yes, it's definitely the most impressive victory of my career, and I definitely showed a lot of improvement in that fight.
So I read that this was the first knockout in Invicta since 2018. Did you know? So not a TKO, not a TKO, because obviously it's not a TKO, but an actual knockout where the person goes out cold, like you did in this fight. So this is the first time since 2018. So you won. Obviously you didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
So how exciting is that to hear?
That's super exciting. And I think it was just so exciting because nobody knew that I was able to like knock somebody out like that either. And I had never done that. So that was super exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so one thing I pride myself on is my film study. That's one of the things I'm passionate about is prospects. In fact, I've been doing the show for a little bit, and I haven't talked about prospects, which is very weird to some people. So that's kind of why I wanted to go back to my roots, talk about prospects. And if I'm being honest, the narrative I write about when I talk about Erin Blanchfield is, well, that's that great BJJ girl. I mean, she's going to win. She's going to take it down. She's going to sit, lock it in submission, whether it be on from the top or the bottom. And now you're throwing high kicks. I think the commentary teams mentioned Mirko Cro Cop. So how exciting is that to get mentioned? A girl who's known for her jiu-jitsu to be mentioned with Mirko Cro Cop.
No, yeah, it's definitely really exciting. I mean, I think a lot of people, because the only thing I did big outside of MMA was that EBI. So most people just always pin me as just a grappler. But I've been doing striking since I was 7 too. So I knew I was capable of that. I just had never shown it in a professional fight yet. But I'm happy I was able to now.
Yeah, I love how you downplayed, like, oh, I just did that EBI thing. No, you didn't just do the EBI thing. You won the world championship, and I think you were 18 years old. I mean, let's not downplay it. I mean, that's a better accomplishment than most fighters ever will. So you talked about going southpaw, that you fought a lot southpaw in this fight. And just so anybody who didn't see the fight, this wasn't the first high kick you landed on. You floored her in the first round with a high kick that she barely survived that one. You landed another high kick later on. Didn't drop her, but you landed a second high kick. I think maybe either late in the first round or early in the second.
Yeah, I think it was late in the first.
Okay, late in the first. I apologize. And then the second round, this perfectly high kick. So were you seeing something in film when you were breaking her down to make you believe that the high kick, especially from the southpaw stand, the left side, would be open for you?
Yes, definitely. We were watching a lot of her tape and her fight with Miranda Maverick. Miranda's a lefty.
Sure.
She seemed to have like a really hard time gauging her distance, and she likes to throw like a hard one too against like all her other opponents. And she tends to drop her right hand slightly when she wants to like load up and hit you with power. And it's really noticeable, especially when she's fighting a lefty. So I was able to I was already working lefty because my Muay Thai coach wanted me to work it just to be more dynamic in my striking. But then once we got this matchup, we were practicing it even more because we knew that we could land that kick off her dropping her hand to load up. Yeah.
Now, most people, when they throw a high kick, it's usually, if you're standing southpaw, you set it up with a jab and then you throw the high kick. You did the opposite. You threw the power with a straight left and followed up with a high kick. A lot of people call that the double attack. Be the double attack on the same side. Is that a setup that you thought was going to be there?
Yes, definitely. Because a lot of people always expect you to throw the one punch and then set up the kick on the other side, like you were saying. So we were working a lot of throwing it to the same side. So all she's worried about is that one strike, and then the kick comes right afterwards.
So the other thing that stood out to me this fight is that it was very fast paced. She came out swinging right away. Like you touched gloves, she stepped right in, started throwing. Did you expect it to be that high of a pace? And also, do you want future fights to be that high of a pace?
Yeah, I can kind of just tell from when I was standing in the cage that she seemed a little nervous, and I could feel like she was probably going to come out hard. And she seemed to do that in her other fights as well. And I liked the fast pace. I didn't mind. I'm always a little bit of a slow starter, so it was definitely a change for me. But yeah, it was a good fight.
Did you get to watch the fight again?
Yeah, I've watched it a few times.
What do you think about Megan Anderson? She's obviously one of the top female fighters in the world, former Invicta champion. She was very complimentary of your skill.
Yeah, she was
Think of that.
hyping me up. It was really nice. Yeah.
I know, listeners, we've been having a little bit of background feed. I apologize to that. Just bear with us.
No problem.
So let's go to when would you like to return?
As soon as possible. We're working on it right now. I mean, I have no injuries or anything, so hopefully soon.
Yeah, and is there a certain opponent you'd like to face next?
I mean, I don't really have anyone in mind right now. I mean, I would like to have someone who's like a little considered higher up in the flyweight division.
Okay.
I mean, I know Miranda and Pearl just fought. I would love to fight either one of those girls, but I know Miranda's probably going to be fighting for the flyweight championship. But anyone who's in that higher end of the division, I would love to fight.
Yeah. Now you just mentioned the title. Vanessa Porto is the champion with Miranda Maverick, probably the number one contender. How far away do you think you are from the title? Do you think one more win, two more wins?
Yeah, I mean, depending on like also how impressive the wins are too. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I mean, maybe one would seem kind of soon, but maybe 2 or 3 more good wins. I think I could definitely be in that conversation.
How about right now, come probably April, we'll start hearing people getting positioned, getting matched up for the Contender Series, which comes out in the summer. Do you think there's any chance that you or your manager is going to get that call and that we could be seeing you on a Contender Series?
I mean, I think that would be awesome. I would totally be down for that. But I don't know yet, so I'm just going to focus on what I do know. Like, I'll talk to Shannon and see when her next cards are. But if I ever do get that call, I'll definitely take that opportunity 100%.
Obviously, I'm sure the goal, like most fighters, is to eventually get to the UFC one day. Obviously, the UFC has stacked cards from now. I think the next 8 weeks in a row they have cards.
Yeah.
I think something like 12 out of 13 weeks. A lot of times when people get called in, it is, we saw this past weekend, Kayla Williams got a call on less than 2 weeks notice. Austin Lingo and Youssef Salal got it, similar situation, like almost the week of the fight they got a call. Hell, James Krause, now he's been in the UFC for a while, he got the call after the weigh-ins. So my question is there any, like when you're training, is there anything saying like, hey, I need to be at, I don't have to be in full fight camp, because you can't stay at that highest level. You'll stay hurt. I mean, you'll get hurt. It's impossible. And anybody who's never trained and never had a fight camp don't understand that. But you also don't want to be eating Twinkies and bag of chips. Like, you want to be somewhat ready. Is there anything when you're training to be like, hey, I got to be at least this much in shape, so in case, hey, they come to New York City, I get a phone call.
Yeah, I was gonna say, especially maybe more so now versus before, because I didn't have that many fights before, but now I'm building up my record a little bit. But I do watch if the UFC is in the area anywhere close in Jersey or New York, and I see that there's flyweight fights on there. I will try to stay a little closer just in case. You never know, and you want to be ready whenever you get that call. So yeah, I definitely try to stay ready.
Well, I mean, UFC 249. I'm gonna pull up the card. I know not a lot of fights have been announced for it, but that's in Brooklyn. I mean, a highlight reel knockout. I mean, this is what Dana White and Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard, they're looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any chance that you think you could get a call for that?
I mean, is there any flyweight fights on that card?
I'm looking at right now what is announced. I don't see anything announced right now, but that does not mean it won't happen. But and the card is not. I mean, I think there's 8 fights on it. Usually they'll try to get 12 or 13 fights. So, I mean, there's still 4 or 5 fights. So, I mean, is that something where you could like circle that date and almost kind of start training for that date just in case?
Yeah, I mean, it would be smart on my part, just in case. I mean, I haven't really thought about it yet, but I definitely agree. I think that's a smart idea for any fighter. If UFC is coming in your area and you're a prospect and you feel like you're that close, you should be ready,
Yeah, I mean, Dominic Reyes, who just fought this past weekend, obviously lost a very close fight to Jon Jones.
Quote unquote.
Yeah. So he didn't have that many more wins than you have right now, or that many more matches than you have right now. And the way he got in was a high kick knockout in LFA. They kind of got everyone's attention. Next minute, he was, fat track into the UFC. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if that phone call came in. So let's talk about this. So you have one loss. It was to Tracy Cortez.
Mhm.
And you just said quote unquote loss about Dominic Reyes. That is a fight that, in my opinion, was very close. I scored it 48-47 for Dominic Reyes, but a lot of people gave it to Jon Jones. And what I've been saying on, oh God, it's got to have been 3 or 4 podcasts now, I've been saying is whether you agree with the decision or not, it was very close and it was not a robbery.
Yeah.
Someone asked me on Twitter, what is a robbery? Well, then if that's not a robbery, what is a robbery? I said, you want to see a robbery? Go pull up Tracy Cortez versus Erin Blanchfield, which is your only loss.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and I don't mean to bring up a sore topic,
That's
but that
okay.
was a robbery. I mean, you won the first and third round. Please tell me, how did you lose that fight? Like, what?
Like
what
when
do I think?
when I watch it again, I mean, I guess the only thing you could say, like, I definitely lost the second. She outpaced me. I definitely won the third. I was all over her. So it came down to the first, and I was very offensive off my back. Like she was pretty much in an armbar position the entire time.
Like 3.5 minutes or something.
Yeah. But I guess the only thing you could say, I guess they were favoring her top position over me being on the bottom.
Yeah.
You know, the judges, there's a lot of judges, you don't know what their background is. Maybe they just did kickboxing for 20 years and they don't really know grappling, and they're judging an MMA fight. So, you know, I mean, in MMA, you know that they favor top position over bottom position. So, you know, I mean, it was a split decision. I left it in the hands of the judges. So
yeah,
it's hard for me to like get really annoyed about it. You know what I mean? If I wanted to make sure I won, I had a finisher. And I knew if we got matched up again, I know I could definitely do that. So maybe I'll be able to avenge that loss one day in the future. And that's all I could hope
Now,
for.
obviously, since then, Tracy Cortez, she went on to the Contender Series, ended up missing weight and still got a contract, which it's funny that people.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It was really weird that she got a contract anyways. But yeah, she got a contract. She's fighting the UFC right now. Is there any anger that's saying, hey, if the judges did their job correct, that could be you already in the UFC, and you could be the person, you could be the, you know, the Macy Barber getting the questions about, could you be the youngest champion in UFC history, not Macy Barber or Edmund Shabazian or one of these other ones. It'd be you getting these questions, being that you just turned 20. You're not close to 21. You just turned 20. Or this is your first fight since turning 20, I should say.
This is my second fight since I turned 20.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought it was your first.
Yeah. Well, it was because it was my first fight in Invicta, not as a teenager.
Oh,
that was like, it was the whole thing they were playing up during my fight. But I mean, I'm only, like you said, I'm only 20 years old, and I'm not gonna hold up anger inside. That's not gonna do anything helpful, you know. Like, I went back, I looked at the fight, and I tried to improve in as many areas as possible, and that's all I could do. And all I have to keep doing is going and winning fights in impressive fashion, like I did Friday night, and I'll get that call eventually. And I know I'm gonna be in the UFC one day, and I'm gonna be a UFC champ one day, and all I have to do is keep working to get better, and that's all I could do, you know. I have to just wait for them to give me the call.
What would you say that you said that you saw that fight, you saw areas that you need to get better? What would you say right now? And I know it's hard to get much better than knocking a girl out with a high kick. But looking at this last fight, I'm sure, you know, the people who are most successful are the ones who will find errors in a game. So what would you say is like that? This is what I have to fix in the fight with Victoria this past week.
Well, she was able to like kind of press me against the cage pretty well. She had very good head positioning, and she was kind of frustrating me there. I was having a little bit of a hard time getting her off of me. I mean, I did eventually get her off and break the distance and was able to strike again. But I feel like that's something I probably have to work on a little bit more. My cage control, like being able to control them and being able to get off quicker. But other than that, it was pretty good. I don't think there was much else mistakes made there.
So I'm gonna get you out of here because I promise you I'd only keep you for a little bit. But so the thing that jumps out at me is you've been training since like early elementary school.
Yeah.
And what made a young, I think you were 7 years old when you started?
Yes.
What made a 7-year-old want to start doing jiu-jitsu instead of doing, you know, I'm gonna stereotype for a second, but you know, not doing softball or not doing cheerleading or gymnastics or dance? Like why did you want to do jiu-jitsu? And then eventually you started doing Muay Thai and then I don't think you were in middle school before you said you wanted to be a fighter.
Yeah, I was like about 12, 13. Yeah.
So it's middle school.
Yeah.
Like you wanted to be a fighter before you were interested in boys? Like how? Like
Yeah, I guess that's true.
like your first crush was fighting.
Yeah.
Your first crush was probably I don't know. So 7 years ago, I don't know. Your first crush was Chris Weidman or whoever. I don't know. I'm not. But
Yeah.
like, what made a young girl want to do MMA? And
I mean, I actually did do dancing from when I was
okay,
like 3 till I was 6, but I just kind of got bored of it. I don't know. I guess it wasn't enough competition for me in that sense. But once I started training and just learning how to defend myself, I don't know, something about it I just loved. I loved getting better, and I loved the challenge of it. And yeah, like I said, once I was 12, 13, I was already started competing like in adult divisions and stuff like that. And I saw how well I was doing. I wanted to fight, and I never lost that vision, and I'm still working on it.
yeah. So you pretty went from one extreme to you like from 3 year olds to 6 year olds. I was dancing, and then
Yeah.
at 7 years old, I'm hitting arm bars and choking kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. My last question before we get out of here is: tell us one thing outside of fighting, one thing that stands out about you, something we don't know. Something it could be a talent, it could be something you're interested in. Just tell me one thing about you that fans who follow sport don't know about you.
Um, I mean, outside of fighting, I don't do that much. I'm a college student right now, and
All right.
I guess another passion, I like to cook and bake and stuff like that.
Okay.
I feel like maybe in another life I'd probably be like a chef. I'm really
All
into
right.
it actually. I try like, especially when I'm like cutting weight. I'll bake like all different things, and I'll come up with all different recipes. And I'll have like my family eat it, and I'll live like vicariously through them.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's one thing, I guess.
is there like a specialty that your family says, Erin, you got to make fill in the blank?
Oh yeah, my brother loves the brownies that I make. And my parents like a lot of things, but like lately they've been liking the scones I make.
All right. So brownies.
Yeah.
All right, Erin, congratulations on your victory. Just stick around for 1 second.
Yeah.
But congratulations from all the people here who listen to this show. It was absolutely wonderful, and good luck in all the future.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Erin Cold-Blooded Blanchfield coming off a highlight reel knockout over Victoria Leonardo. Left kick. It was absolutely beautiful. It's not often that a 20-year-old girl gets compared to Mirko Cro Cop. That is why she is our prospect of the week. Stick around. I'll be giving all my predictions for UFC Rio Ranchos from bottom all the way to the top to the main event. Just stick around. Welcome back to the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. I am Keith Shillan. We will be closing out the show. We thank you for sticking around. This is a longer than usual shows. We had two guests. First of all, I want to thank my guest, Jay Pettry of Sherdog.com, for all his thoughts on UFC 247. And, of course, Invicta flyweight standout, Erin Blanchfield. Congratulations on the wonderful win. Before we get out of here, I'm just going to give my picks. I'm going to try to make it very quick considering we're already over an hour. So let me give my picks for UFC 2. Oh, excuse me, not UFC 2 nothing. UFC ESPN Plus 25. UFC Rio Rancho goes down this weekend at the Santa Ana Star Center in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. There's 13 fights on the card. I actually got to give a shout out to Marcel Doff. He's been actually saying that the undercard, the prelims, is probably better than the main card. I agree with that, though they did change the Devin Clark-Daquan Townsend fight that was originally scheduled to be on the main card. That got swapped with Ray Borg and Hajira Bontorin that is now on the main card. I think that's a really good matchup. So I think that balances out a little bit. But like I said, we've been going for a long time. I didn't get to do that much research this week as I've been really focused on UFC 247. So I'm going to try to give you quick picks before I give my picks. If you follow my picks and you like to gamble, please gamble responsibly. Do not gamble your mortgage, your kids' college savings, anything stupid like that. This is just, you want to throw a couple
bucks on it? Sure, go ahead, but please be responsible. All right, let's get through it. First fight of the night, Mark De La Rosa versus Royland Paiva. De La Rosa is actually the husband of Montana De La Rosa, who's also on this card. The first time in history, a married couple, two fighters, male and a female, will be fighting on the same card. I'm actually going to say it starts off rough for these guys. I'm going to take Paiva, the longer ranger guy. He's going to pick him apart from range. He's going to have to stop the takedown attempts for De La Rosa, but I think he'll get it done. I'll take Paiva. I think that'd be his first. Is that his first UFC win? I believe so. Second fight, Macy Chiasson versus Shayna Young. Shayna Young taking this fight on very short notice, making her debut in the UFC. She's replacing former flyweight champion, Nico Montano, who got injured, pulled out very late. I'm going to say the Fortis MMA losing streak ends. The Macy Chiasson, a girl that I was very high on, former Ultimate Fighter winner, that she wins. She just outmuscles Shayna Young, who's actually moving up from flyweight in her debut at short notice. And Macy Chiasson is a girl that is very big for the weight class. I think she takes her down, ground the pound Shayna Young. Moving on, Casey Kenny versus Mirabag Devashvili. I struggle with his name, but he's really good. I mean, he's a guy high output, good takedowns. Casey Kenny, another guy known for his striking, his grappling. I really like both these guys. Tough call. I'm staring at this. I'm having a hard time. But I'm gonna go with Casey Kenny. He's got 2 wins in a row in the UFC, 2-0 in the UFC. Took out 2. He was the underdog in both fights. Gave up a lot of pounds in his last fight to Manny Bermudez. If he'd be able to stop the takedown attempts and possibly win the wrestling exchanges, I think he can get the job done. I'll go with Casey Kenny. Devin Clark versus Daquan Townsend. Daquan Townsend, a guy who just fought a couple weeks ago, going against Devin Clark. Daquan Townsend moving back up to light heavyweight. Clark's a better wrestler, stronger guy, bigger guy. I say he gets it done. Scott Holtzman, Jim Miller. This is a hard fight to pick. Jim Miller, he's getting up there. He's very high there up the age. How he keeps trugging along surprised me. Scott Holtzman is a very good physique, strong guy. Oh man, this is a hard one to take. I'm going to take Holtzman. It's hard to pick Jim Miller at this age. John Donson's with Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel Wood is a guy that a lot of people are super hyped about. He looks really good. The prospect, though it's probably hard to call him a prospect. We'll go to John Dodson, a guy that, former UFC flyweight title challenger, a guy who's been on a, rough stretch recently. I think he's lost something like 6 out of his last 8 fights. But he's still got some pretty good speed, though it's declining. He's always been very left-hand happy. He just throws the same overhand left. But this is a big step up in competition for Nathaniel Wood. And for John Dodson, I actually think this is a step down in competition. It's in Dodson's hometown, his home state, I should say. I think Dodson's going to dig deep. He's going to find something. And it's tough for Nathaniel Wood to go into, his opponent's hometown, big step up. I know Nathaniel Wood is the sexy pick, but I'm going to actually go with John Dodson to pull it off and stay relevant in that division. Tim Means versus Daniel Rodriguez. This is a fun fight. I know a lot of guys. I don't know if Daniel Rodriguez is that high of a UFC talent. I don't know if he even is a UFC talent, but he's a guy that he'll bring the action. He throws hard. Tim Means has always been known for an action fighter. Not a good takedown guy, terrible takedown defense, but strong, long rangey strikes, strong in the clinch. He's got a lot of experience. I'm going to go with him due to experience, toughness, being in his home state. This is a fun fight. I give Daniel Rodriguez a better shot than most people, but I'll go Tim Means. Now we're on to the main card, and a fight that I'm probably from top to bottom might be the fight I'm least interested in. Yancy Medeiros versus Lando Venata. I know that crazy to some people. Both guys are fun, highlight reel type guys. It's not really relevant. I'm not that high in either one's talent. Lando Venata has really struggled lately. Yancy Medeiros did have a little. Do I feel like Yancy had a little bit run for a little while? I know Donald Cerrone. Yeah, he had that 3-fight win streak before he ran to Donald Cerrone. Go from Donald Cerrone to Gregor Gillespie. That's a big step down to land. But I'll say I'll go with the Hawaiian against Medeiros. Brock Weaver versus Rodrigo Vargas. Brock Weaver's a big favorite. I don't think he should be a big favorite. I think it should be a pick'em fight. Rodrigo Vargas is a guy. He's a raw guy, very unpolished, terrible wrestler. Brock Weaver is a guy. He's kind of been a guy that has gotten a lot of hate on the regional scene for being a low output guy, but he does have fast hands. He's strong in the clinch. He's very tough. To me, this is a coin toss fight. Weaver has the hype. I don't see anything special in him. I do like his personality. He is a wild man. So just that alone, I'm gonna reach. What am I saying? I'm gonna lean towards Brock Weaver and say he gets W. Ray Borg versus Hajir Bontorin. This is a fight that I keep going back and forth. I really don't know who's going to win this fight. Ray Borg moved back down to 125. I don't even know if he's going to make the weight. We'll find that out tomorrow morning. But, I promise you I want to get out of here quick, so I got to hurry up these picks. This is one I've been flipping flop all day. I think Ray Borg. You know what? I'm going to go. I was going to say Ray Borg, but God, I don't know who I'm going to pick. This is a tough fight. Ray Borg, I can see Borg leading on a heavy wrestling game and winning this. Bontorin is gonna. I think he has advantage in striking. You know what? I'm going to say Bontorin stuffs enough takedowns and lands some shot, and we get a little bit of passing of the guard as we have the older veteran, though he's not that very old, but the guy's been around in the UFC for a long time. Moving out of the way for the younger guy. I'll take Bontorin. Another fight that's very hard to pick, Montana De La Rosa versus Mara Romero Barella. Barella is probably the better striker. They're probably pretty even in the wrestling, though I think Montana De La Rosa is a better athlete. I already picked against her husband. Do I make it 0-2 for the De La Rosa family? No, I'm going to actually go with Montana, though I think she'll have a hard time getting Barella down. She's relentless with those takedown attempts. She's faced a better competition. I'll say Montana De La Rosa gets W. Co-main event probably shouldn't be the main event, but I understand why. Diego Sanchez, longtime guy, New Mexico guy. He's going against Michel Pereira. This comes down to Michel Pereira's gas tank. If he can be a little wiser, not dance around and waste all his unnecessary energy, I think he can catch the chin of Diego Sanchez. Diego will probably come out forward like a madman. He should be looking to get this fight to the ground and turn into a grappling fest. I don't know if he does. But I'm going to say the Brazilian catches him, knocks him out. I'm going to say first round, Michel Pereira. And the main event, Corey Anderson, Jan Blachowicz, possible winner facing the man we saw just win last weekend, Jon Jones, for the title. This is a rematch from their matchup a couple years back. I don't know if the narrative really changed since last time. Corey Anderson was the better wrestler. He had the better gas tank. His wrestling style drains guy. That's something that we've seen happen to Jan Blachowicz. Blachowicz, I think, has improved his takedown defense. I don't know if he improved his grappling. I expect Corey Anderson to use a heavy wrestling game. I don't know if he'll be able to get Blachowicz out of there, but I think he'll cruise to a decision. So I'll take Corey Anderson by decision. So there's all my picks. I promised you I'd try to make them very quick. One, based on how long this show was going, but more is I didn't do a lot of tape study. I'll be honest. I like to be honest with the listeners, so I can't say I'm very confident. Don't have a lot of feels because you don't do your homework, you can't get that many feels. Anyways, I'm gonna get out of here. Before we do, I just want to say thanks once again to our two guests, Jay Pettry, Assistant Editor of Sherdog.com, and Invicta Flyweight Superstar. I'm going to throw the superstar in there. Superstar Erin Blanchfield for the time. Guys, we'll be back next week. We'll be talking about all the fallouts from UFC Rio Rancho. We'll probably talk about the Bellator cards. We have another card next week. Is it that? I think it's Auckland next week, right? Or is it? Yeah, I should have probably checked. But yeah, I think it's UFC Auckland next week. And yeah, that's the Paul Felder, Dan Hooker card. So we'll probably talk about that. We'll have another guest. And until then, thanks for sticking around. Make sure you subscribe to all the shows, not just this one, on the Loudmouth Podcast Network. And thanks for listening.